Hey, so this week's episode and the week following it, it's kind of visual heavy. So you'll be able to see it on Patreon if you're a paid subscriber. And then the week after, it will be for free subscribers. So please go to patreon.com forward slash I'm Matt Elfring to see the weird and wonderful toys from Dan Polydoris of Death by Toys. And the week after will be with WWE 2K dev Brian Williams. I don't know why I paused in his name there. Anyways, enjoy this episode. Again, patreon.com forward slash I'm Matt Elfring to see the video version of this. Enjoy. Hey, welcome to Casual Yelling, the Casual Conversation podcast, now with 85% yelling. I'm Matt Elfring, but you already knew that. Today I'm here with toy creator from Death by Toys, Dan Polydoris. Dan, how are you?
Good, Matt. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. I want to point out before we get started, this is not sponsored by Death by Toys, not sponsored by Yonoid the video game. I just like Dan, and I like talking to Dan on the 3 times we have talked.
Yeah, I was thinking it's probably one hand. I could count on one hand the amount of times. So it's always nice now to see you in some sort of human-ish real life thing instead of just a message or something. So
yeah, instead of, I think the last time I saw you, because I think we had done comedy maybe once or twice together, way back when.
yeah.
I think the last time I saw you, and this completely connects to Death by Toys, was a flea market or a toy show in St. Charles, Illinois.
Oh yeah.
And you were buying the Ghostbusters like firehouse.
Yeah. That's right. I still have, with my wife at the time, still have the firehouse. Wife is not here anymore, so the firehouse outlasted the wife, which is very fitting and it shouldn't be a surprise to anyone. But yeah, that was a long time ago, dude. And I remember meeting with Buds was there too.
Ryan Buds, yeah.
Yeah. That was fun, man. So that feels like
Sharknado star Ryan Buds.
yeah. Hollywood's Ryan Buds.
Watch the beginning of Sharknado. The guy whose leg is bitten off was part of our weird stand-up comedy group where we were cliquey and kind of a-holes.
I don't know. I feel like it was nice. I feel like you guys out in the burbs were actually way nicer and more welcoming than the Chicago people were, like the city people. And even then, the city people and the city comics, in my opinion, were also great. I mean, that was my sort of crew, but I definitely found, burbs to be a little bit more welcoming than the city. But we crossed paths pretty. This is supposed to be a Venn diagram of where I was and where you were, and we would cross paths pretty seldom, but it was always nice. So
enough, yeah. Because I was someone who started in Chicago. I did reverse comedy.
Oh, okay.
I started in Chicago at open mics where you'd hit like 4 up in a night.
Right.
And then I moved back to the burbs and I'm like, oh, let's find one place that does comedy. And that was
Right
it.
on. That's funny. I like that. Good venues out there in the burbs, though. They're always so nice. I like them.
There was regular people there, not just comics. And that's no insult to regular comics, but
that's just what it was. Yeah, city shows. I mean, they were all bringers. So it's kind of what it sort of was.
But let's get to the real reason why you're here. It's something I interviewed you at GameSpot for years ago, but just about your Simpsons toys. Tell us about Death by Toys.
Just a one-man operation of me making action figures and toys and collectibles by hand here in my studio and selling them from my house here to other weirdos.
But I think the difference is you've like the very broad description is, I make toys, but to me it's like I'm having an existential crisis in toy form.
Yeah, maybe that's a good way to put it. I definitely, the way I guess I put it is they're toys for people who don't collect toys.
Yeah.
So you don't have to be an action figure to relate to some sort of existential crisis, like you said, or some kind of something that we all kind of recognize or are going through together. And I tend to make toys that speak to that kind of thing.
I would like to know, how did Death by Toys get started?
So like 2013 or so, end of 2012, before my kid was born, my first kid, I was just in the basement. I wasn't really doing much art stuff professionally. I had stopped writing for You Don't Know Jack a couple
Mhm.
of years, like about a year before that. And I was writing for just a kid's company and not really happy being a copywriter. So I was in the basement. We were waiting for the kid to be born, like, any day. And started chopping up some of my vintage Star Wars figures to make them look like old Nintendo characters. So made like a Mega Man and a Mario, and just did it for fun. And honestly, didn't even think twice about it. Just did them because it was really fun. And I like doing stuff with my hands off of a screen too. I just kind of like, I've always liked that. And then a friend of mine sent them to Gawker's gaming site at the
Yeah.
time. And then a bunch of people asked about them and wanted to buy them. I sold them to some dude. I made a few more from another Atari, like an Atari series then, and just kind of kept making more and more. And that was, 2013. So about 11 years ago. And I just kind of kept doing it more and more and more. And then started doing it full time at the beginning of 2020 when I finally decided to quit copywriting and do this full time. And I haven't really looked back. I mean, maybe a little bit, but not really at all. And I don't think I'll ever go back to corporate America. So,
Isn't copywriting, I want to say, because like I've done a few copywriting jobs since, and I've had one that I really, really, really liked that was for an art company. But the other ones I had, I was just like, there's no creativity, there's no wiggle room in there, and it feels soulless sometimes.
dude, absolutely. And even the fun ones is like, I mean, I wrote professionally for, I don't know, 6 years, maybe something like that. And was an editor for, another 5 on top of that. And I think I just brought those numbers down. It has to have been, it was like 15 years in the industry or something. God, I'm like traumatized by it. But I spent a long time in there. And even the fun ones, like the dog shit writing jobs, yes, there's no creativity there at all.
Hmm.
But even like the sort of on the surface fun ones, like a fun kids company or like a cool, it's like if it's a big company and you've got executives in the room and you've got shirt tuckers in there and they're all putting their fingers into everything you do, and you've got marketing people who are telling you it needs to be this, and you non-creative people making creative decisions, and it sucks. And it
Hmm.
really was, that was for me. I wrote for Crate and Barrel for a long time,
Ooh.
and it was just, not for me. So that was when I ended up I left Crate and Barrel to do Death by Toys full time. So
How do you describe, like, this leather-bound brown couch is also a couch bed, and you
dude,
can feel the stress melt away as you sit upon it.
oh my God. Yeah, basically. And I don't know, you got to be a little high, I found, in my opinion, in my experience. And I also just, it's just not for me. That's not my jam. That's like literally what I would tell my friends who, like my copywriting friends, the other people on the team who I got to know, told them, like, this is not for me. Like, I'm not supposed to write about grown up stuff. Like, an
Mhm.
ottoman, like, I don't like the empire. Like, this is not for me. And they never really understood, but I honestly cannot emphasize that enough, that just grown up normal. So it was a kids company originally. So it was toys and weird fun stuff. And then Crate and Barrel bought it. Then I got moved on to grown up stuff at Crate and Barrel. Next thing I know, I'm finding myself writing about like a silk set of bed sheets or something. And it's like, I don't know, spiders made it. I have no clue. So, it just wasn't for me. So, this is stressful, running your own business and
Mhm.
doing stuff on my own, having no boss where I have to be the one to kind of get off your ass, get work done or whatever. But none of that even comes close to the kind of just existential crisis that I'd have waking up to go to Crate and Barrel every day, or 8 hours, 9 hours at an office that I just didn't like. I couldn't, it's not for me. And
Mhm.
people told me I'd get used to it. I'd get used to it. I'd get used to it. And I entered the work world in 2004 when I graduated college, and quit at the end of 2019. And during that whole time, everyone kept saying, you'll get used to it. You'll get used to it. You'll get used to it. And I just never did. And at some point, it's kind of like, dude, I mean, you can get used to anything after decades of torture and
Mhm.
abuse. So it's kind of like, is that the end goal, to get used to it? Or maybe like find something that doesn't give me diarrhea and an ulcer every day, you know, and it just is like so bad for me. So this is better. It's way more unconventional, and even my kids get it of like, this is pretty fucked up, Dad, whatever you're doing here. And it's like, I know, sorry, I'm sorry, guys, this is just sorry, I can't do other stuff. So if I was hemorrhaging money still after years and years, maybe we'd be looking back at going back to copywriting or something, but this has been fine. So it's a lot more hours, but better hours. Way better hours.
And again, you're not writing things like, this avocado peeler makes getting the pit of the avocado so much easier. It's slice, twist, and peel, and you'll never have to think about the stress of peeling an avocado again.
Also, what's an avocado? Yeah, that just like is not for none of that stuff was for me. I felt so out of place. We'd go to these like meetings with all of these, like, I don't know, just it's like a shirt tucker convention, and then there's like me there like this, like, hey guys, like, all right, this is not for me, sorry. So yeah, so year 4 of doing this full time right now, and I'm still alive doing it. So you can kind of see behind me is chaotic, but this is my studio where I spend, I mean, literally 8 hours, 9 hours a day, basically.
And you've got what I'm guessing are Vallejo paints behind you.
You would guess correct. I used to be a Tester's Model Master acrylics guy. They stopped making those, and then I started trying other acrylics, and Vallejos ended up being the best. Do you use them?
Yeah, I use Vallejo paints and then Turbo Dork for mini painting.
Oh, Turbo Dork. Is that
so they're I don't know where they're based out of, but are you aware of like Adepticon?
No.
Okay, it's mostly Warhammer. It's a convention of like Warhammer and tabletop gaming, but there's a lot of
true minis then. Like that's like a
Yes.
true mini convention then. Oh, okay. Awesome.
And they hold like awards for like best paint job, and it's really, really cool. But I had been using Turbo Dork for a few years. It looks metallic. It's not really a metallic paint, but depending on how you hold it in the light, it's color shifting.
Whoa.
Yeah. So like the only
Yeah.
issue I have with it, and it's not a real issue, but you have to do like 4 to 6 layers of it before you really get like the true color out of it.
Oh, right on.
Yeah, like Vallejo, you can do like just one paint over and like you're good. It's set.
Yeah, if it's like a shitty, I mean, especially for the garbage that I make, that's just kind of like a gag. It's like dump a coat on. I mean, I'll still do multiple thin layers if it's like a nice piece that I'm doing and not some stupid gag. But Turbo Dork. All right, maybe I'll check that out. I'm not wild about Vallejos. I like them, I think, better than the Tester's Model Master acryls, because those, you'd get 2 different colors. One would be thicker than mud. The other one was just watery as can be. They both say semi-gloss. One is super shiny. The other one's flatter than a different color that they call matte or whatever. So it was kind of all over the place. At least with the Vallejos, they're consistent. I like that the Vallejos take longer to dry, because it just means my paints, any colors that I mix, I mix everything in contact cases. And
nice.
Because I never need that much. I just use little bits. And then the Vallejos I found stay wet and good way longer than the Testers do. You don't airbrush anything, do you?
Yeah, a little bit. Like,
do you?
I can just go right here.
Oh, nice.
Nope, not that one. But I've just got like one of these not so great, like
okay, looks like a big old vape.
It does but it's just like kind of a portable compressor and then just a really not great airbrush.
I think that might be the one I have too, because I have one. And do you use Vallejo, or do you use, what kind of paint do you use in there? And do you have to
yeah, Vallejo, just like the model air kits you can buy at Hobby Lobby.
Oh, and it's a specific airbrush type of paint.
Yeah, like I can water down the Vallejo, or like the Turbo Dork works pretty well if it's really watered down, because it's a really thick paint.
Yeah, that was my question, because I was going to water down Vallejos and just try it. So
It works. I think the issue is finding the consistency to, like, so it doesn't just run off, but it also isn't just globby and completely clog up your airbrush.
totally, I could see that. Well, maybe I'll get after it, and it's not too bad. It doesn't make like a huge I have a little venti system here.
Yeah.
Mostly the vent is for smoking weed, but also for if we airbrush or something like that. So, all right, maybe I'll get after my airbrush at some point. I still got to set up my 3D printer. So,
This is the issue I feel like within modeling and toy community is I've got like a photo box, I have, uh, 8 million different things to just paint miniatures this big,
I know, right?
or make acrylic dice, then or not acrylic, resin dice, and then paint those.
Yeah. Oh, do you make custom dice too?
I'm still working on it. I'm learning. I've
Cool.
So I'll make like a whole set for D&D, and 4 will be good without air bubbles, and the rest are garbage.
Oh, yeah. Do you pressurize them or no?
I tried putting one in like a vacuum sealer, like for food, and it
Oh,
kinda
yeah,
helped, but I don't wanna buy a pressure pot. They're
dude.
so
I mean,
expensive.
that's what I got here, and I mean, it's an ordeal, dude, using one of those, you know what I mean? And,
Yeah,
you get the right like you said, one out of a handful would end up being okay, and I used to cast without pressure. In fact, sometimes I still do cast without pressure depending on what the project is. Sometimes you
yeah.
can get away with it, if it's like a stupid gag and it doesn't need to look nice, but, yeah, you get the right resin, you can still kinda pull it off without, pressure. That's neat, man. I didn't know that you made, that stuff. Has it been kind of fun figuring it out at least or frustrating?
Like, it was when I was having a bunch of seizures last year, 'cause I don't think we ever talked this, but I have epilepsy, and I
Or you
last
mentioned
year
yeah.
switched meds, and when I lost my job and all that, the stress was, like, the highest it's ever been, and I kept having seizures till we got, like, a good med. But I had so much free time because it was, again, I was jumping between copywriting jobs.
Oh, sure.
And so I'm like, okay, I'll just stay up really late and I'll just paint minis. Because a few years back, what I thought would be a joke for GameSpot was WizKids sent me a bunch of paint and miniatures. Like, can you do, like, would you mind doing a piece on this? And usually I'm like, no, I'm not going to do a piece. Like, thanks for sending me stuff. But this time I'm like, wouldn't it be funny if I tried it? Like, and I'm not an artist. Like, I'm great with words. I'm terrible with anything art wise. I thought, and I painted my first miniature, and then I sent it to a couple people that pictures of it to people that do miniature painting, and I'm like, "What do you think of this? Isn't this really bad?" They're like, "Hey, for your first time, this is really good."
Nice.
Yeah, and I'm like, "You know what? Like, let's try again." And it just kept going and going.
Right.
There's a boat way okay, let's get the hand. Way back there.
Okay.
You can't see. It's really hard.
Alright.
But the boat is, I think, 4 feet, and it wasn't even primed. They just sent it to me. WizKids did. They're like, "Hey, like, you can paint this." And I spent like about a month, and it turned out really, really good. And I'm like, okay, I think I have talent in this. So
Sure,
like, let's
yeah,
just
yeah, yeah.
jump all in.
Awesome. It's
Yeah.
fun too, isn't it? It's nice.
Yeah.
I know, other artists, customizers, whatever, that, have honestly mentioned that the painting process for them is the most stressful because there's some element of permanence to it. I mean,
Mhm.
you can paint over something, but you can only paint over something so many times, especially with like minis, till you start
Mhm.
losing detail and stuff. So yeah, you fuck something up a couple of times, eventually you start losing that wiggle room of it being okay. But I don't know. It's fun. I can't look at it that way of like, what if I mess this up? Well, dude, what if I mess up everything? I've messed up everything in my whole life anyways. So what's one more figure right now? Might as well enjoy it. I've messed up a career. I've messed up a marriage. I've messed up plenty of other things. My credit. I think we're okay if this tiny goblin figure or whatever doesn't come out perfect. So,
Uh,
um, I
yeah, and I
like
think the difference is when I'm mini painting, I'm not trying I'm not trying to like sell it out to the market. Usually it's like my D&D group, we're starting a new campaign. All right, I'll paint figures for everybody, and if it turns out bad, like, I don't care.
yeah,
Like,
low stakes, right? So
exactly.
totally, the enjoyment is way more than whatever quote risk is involved necessarily.
Like, because this is different. Like when I'm like, oh, I've got to interview somebody, and I want to talk to somebody I like, or at least know, and then talk to them the things they're into, which is, that's fine. That's why I talk to I just talk to people I like because like, oh, you do something interesting. Like you
Oh,
do
I
something
appreciate
rad,
that.
so let's talk to you, you
I think
know?
we're also similar enough. Like I said, your Friday the 13th article, it's like, dude, this is absurd. Did you write this for me? Because that's how it feels. And I mean, I got all the Friday the 13th on Blu-ray. I've got all the 80s ones on VHS. I mean, my wife and I watch them all the time. So looking at your
Mhm.
screen grabs, it's just like, yep, know that scene, know that scene. Yep. Could, if at any point, if it could almost be like, okay, that's 37 minutes and 12 seconds into the movie. That's at 1 hour 10, So no, between that, you painting stuff, even resin. Are you using smooth on stuff for resin?
I don't know what that means. That's how early I am into this.
Well, regardless, I like that we're both doing that. What kind of resin are you pouring? Do you know?
Um, the company's called, I think, Let's Resin.
Oh, okay. You like
I'm
it?
s- I'm so new to it. Like I'm doing the A and B resin. I have the UV light resin.
Oh, I've never used any of that before.
I think for my first experience of trying to make like a D4, you can only do very small layers at a time, and I do not have the patience to do that because it's
Oh,
like,
yeah, that UV, yeah, you can't really be hitting a giant wad of something with it, I
but I
imagine.
thought you could the first time, so I was trying to make
Does it just get kinda sludgy sort of or just tacky or stay it just is hard to cure it that way, I imagine?
the outside was like completely hardened. I made a cube just to try it out, but
Yeah.
the inside I could move it around. Like, oh, I see a bubble and everything's moving.
Oh, because it's
Yeah,
clear so you could see inside that oh, that's kinda neat despite it being not finished or correct or whatever,
but if the
that's so
thing
cool.
pops, like you
Yeah, you
can't touch it
crack
because
it.
it's poison.
Dude, right. That shit is so nasty, man. That's the one of the only things. I mean, I vent too for when I'm curing resin
Mhm.
and stuff. And that's like one of the few things that when my kids see me doing stuff and they're like, "Oh, could we pour something?" that it's like, "Fine, but glove up first.
Yeah,
Let's like not get this stuff. I'm not sending you back to your mom's house with like a hardened giant piece in your shirt or something or in your hair or something like that." And yeah, that stuff's nasty, but I the reason I ask is the stuff I use is by a company called Smooth Cast, and
okay.
love it. So I do some clear stuff, some stuff that hardens or that cures just like opaque or whatever, and even that stuff's fun, dude. I like doing that kind of stuff, even when stuff goes wrong.
Yeah.
Almost like I can't believe this happened. Like this could happen. This is neat, at least. So
I think the ideal when with the one that I screwed up on, I poked a hole in it, and as the liquid was coming out, I just started, like, putting the UV light over it. I'm like, "Let's see
oh
what can
yeah,
happen
sure,
here."
that's cool.
I think that's the thing is, like, you start a new hobby, and you're gonna put all the money into it if it's something kinda niche, and it's like you have to be prepared to, like, completely screw up and just not get down about it.
Dude,
That's the
absolutely,
hardest part.
man. And man, the amount of I mean, I guess it doesn't it applies to a lot of things, all sorts of things, but the people that kind of dive in there's something to be said for diving in head first, but then there's some
Mhm.
people that I think dive in head first with $12,000 worth of scuba equipment and it's sort of just like let's chill out for a second and you can still, the first figures I ever resin cast were right above me here this blue guy
Mhm.
Coven with Mark Borchard and I didn't use pressure. I didn't even really know how to pour a mold. The first mold of the original sculpt, it was the first time making an original sculpt, and dude, everything went wrong. First
Mhm.
mold or the first original sculpt cracked and broke trying to get it out of the first mold, and I was like, great. Not only did the mold not come out, the original sculpt is broken, so we will start over and do this again, and everything goes wrong, and I was having a good time and liked doing it and you know it's one of those things where like as long as like what we were just saying with painting is like as long as the enjoyment is
Mhm.
outweighing those moments of like damn it then it's worth it and but I know like a lot of toy customizers who have asked or people starting off or people just asking for advice about Should I get this type of pot for pressurizing, this type of air compressor? Should I use these? Should I get this? And it's kind of like, dude, I started doing it with paints that I just happened to have in my basement that were enamels that don't even really react well over time to the
Yeah.
vintage plastic. Printing out whatever I could on whatever I could. I used an old dental floss plastic bubble for they just find a 2-pack of dental floss. So it's just like you do all that and you keep with it, and then somewhere in there you kind of find out if you even like doing it or not,
Mm-hmm.
kind of with anything. And then when you realize like this is fun, I enjoy doing it, yes, maybe put a little bit more money in or upgrade some of your equipment or upgrade your game to some degree. But uh all of that stuff, like you just said, I mean, you're sitting there making dice right now and figuring it out. You don't have a pot, you don't have a uh, pressure air compressor. It can still be done. If at some point you decide to get into that game, great. I just feel like there's plenty to be done and plenty to learn
Yeah.
from the start with the kind of rudimentary materials in any field, I think.
Yeah. And I feel like, and I jokingly say, like, I'm in the back nine now because I'm over 40. So it's like I'm at home with my wife and kid most of the time. It's like, why not try like something really, really new that I wouldn't have done in my 20s?
Yeah, totally. Especially when you have the time to now, or you're at least, or the resources, having a place to do it, or,
Hmm.
yeah. And also just why not? I'm on the back nine as well, my man. So I know how it goes. But man, what a long burn it is, huh? I mean,
Yeah.
I felt old in my mid 30s, and now I look back at that and it's like, dude, I didn't even know what hurting all the time felt like. Or
My back is on fire from getting mulch the other day.
no,
It
right,
just
man, my
hurts so
shoulders on
much.
from playing throwing a football with my kid for like 20 minutes, and my body's like, no, we don't do that anymore. And yeah, mulch, don't do that or you will, right, kill yourself. And so yeah, but it keeps going, dude. Next thing you know,
Yeah.
we're gonna be in our mid 50s talking about how this felt young. So
It
uh
never ends.
no shit, man, not for us. You got to keep
No.
trudging along. So
Here's so so I always assumed when it came to death by toys. Look at that. We've gone right before. This isn't like the variety interview or whatever you did where it's like we're sticking straight to the topics. We're everything bounces around in the show, which I
I
like.
like it.
So I always assumed you were using just like leftover parts that you found at like flea markets and stuff. But you've mentioned like doing molds and casting. Is that how you're doing the toys now
It's
entirely?
it's both. And I kind of from the start have always done both. I realize I want to make a figure for Mark Borchards's Coven from that
Yeah.
documentary American movie. Got to sculpt something. Uh, the figure next to it is another Coven figure, but it's of him. And that was not an original sculpt. That was some pieces that I pieced together of old vintage figures, plus original sculpt on the head and the hair and some body part stuff. So certain pieces are actually like kind of a hybrid of both. Are
Okay.
some repurposed old toys with additional sculpts. Some are completely original sculpts. Some are just some repurposed thing, like the guy in the vest. Here's a dude in a vest. Great. Put him in a package about making fun of his vest and call it a toy. So I kind of do whatever. If I kind of whatever the project or idea calls for, use whatever I got around.
And you're doing primarily just this is the thing that's always kind of not weirded me out, but like I found intriguing was like you have it's mainly 5 points of articulation essentially for these figures. And I'm like, where are you finding these? Like, are these at the dollar store or are you jumping into like 1950s? Like, we have plastic and like they just made figures of whatever guy.
Yeah, it's kind of everywhere, dude. I go to vintage stores in the city every week. I'm at, one or two. I got my regulars who look out for me and keep certain pieces,
Mhm.
knowing the types of stuff I buy. I also buy stuff from China. I will buy, a
Yeah.
hundred,
Yeah.
200. I'll buy bulk of, I mean, I'm sitting here talking to you. Here's just a handful of just straight up skeletons and a snake in there. Those might have come from Party City a couple of years ago. I don't know. I don't throw anything away
Hmm.
because for starters, you never know when it's like oh, I'm going to need a couple of blue snakes. I got blue snakes in that thing that I bought 200 years ago that's sitting in this bin now. Uh, yeah, that's kind of how you just build up the inventory for things like that. Of just, you get an idea, oh shoot, I need a goat. Oh, I'll check the bucket of animals that I have. I'm sure there's a goat in there. Or I need, so yeah, I kind of do both. I like doing both, and I think both serve a purpose, like the repurposing of old toys or sculpting something by hand from scratch, or they are very different processes and serve super different purposes. One is to, the kind of repurpose things are usually when I'm just cranking them out to do a run of 20, 30, something like that, taking my time to sculpt one single piece for a one-off or something. It's just a different cadence, but fun. They're both fun. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what the business is kind of a little bit of everything business.
How soon did you just straight up, because I never saw your first ones, but when did you just kind of jump into comedy? Because I mean, and so much of that is the card backs itself too, but when do you just full on go like, let's just make silly dumb figures instead of making Mega Man or something from Atari?
Honestly, the first time I ever did it, because I was making horror movie toys too
Mhm.
back in the early days, 2013, 14. And then somewhere in there, and it felt like it was against my instincts at the time. And this is sort of a formative moment. And I've talked about it on some other podcasts. So if it sounds like I'm repeating myself, I am. I made John Carpenter's my guy, and I wanted to make a fog figure. And I thought it would be so funny
I
to
remember this one.
figure of just the fog. So I put some cotton balls in a little fog. I designed a fog card back that looked like the, packaging, or like looked like the movie poster, looked like the old branding and stuff, and put the fog in there. And I think I made like 4 or 5 of them. Made them in the basement of my old house. I was still married at the time, first marriage, and wasn't doing this full time. Was still very rudimentary. Didn't have the name. I don't even know if the name Death by Toys existed at the time. And
Mhm.
I make them. I'm looking at them, and I'm like, the fog, the figure. This is real stupid, even for me, because it was the first time I had put something in a bubble that wasn't like a painted action figure.
Mhm.
And I was like, are horror fans going to be like, this is stupid? This guy's a kook or whatever. And I don't know. I honestly was like, are people going to turn on me? Is this them going to be like, this dude's officially just I don't know, what is this, a hustle that this guy's running, trying to sell garbage? So I put him in the store. I made like 5 of them. I messaged my buddy who at the time was running Bloody Disgusting, the horror website,
Yeah.
and was like, hey, dude, I made these fog toys. Here's the link in my store. Maybe it was on eBay, because I don't even think I had a store up at the time. So I had like a post on my blog. And within a minute, he was like, awesome. I love it. I just bought one. And here's an article that I wrote that's on Bloody Disgusting already. I was like, dude, that took, no, okay. And then they sold out immediately. And then I kind of started seeing them making the rounds. And since then, and either way, I was like, man, horror fans are awesome. And I couldn't believe
Mhm.
that. I couldn't believe. I was relieved that horror fans were on board and were like, this is hilarious and stupid and goofball, and we like it and we're okay. And since then, from that moment, I kind of was always okay leaning into goofball comedy stuff a little bit. And then since then, certain pieces continue to merge those two things, horror, comedy. Some are just straight horror, some are just straight comedy. But that first moment of trying something really stupid, really goofy with the fog was the first time I tried it, and people responded well. And I've kind of leaned into it since. It's a really long answer for just.
That's fine. You're explaining, it's fine.
Thanks,
I
bud.
think like as a horror fan, you have to have a good sense of humor. Like you mentioned the piece that I wrote that wasn't we talked about it before we started recording, which was Friday the 13th, the final chapter, every kill ranked by silliness, which
Yes, they absolutely all go
yes.
hand in hand like that, especially
Yeah.
80s horror and the campiness.
It was like the 40th anniversary of that movie, I believe 40th. And my boss said, "Hey, can you write about Final the 13th final chapter?" I'm like, "Yeah, but like let me do a ranking and just let me go. Like let me do To quote Mark Wahlberg from The Other Guys, I'm a peacock and gotta fly.
Yeah,
Yeah, and so
absolutely.
I'm
A
like, let's not
beautifully flying peacock.
yeah, like, let's not rank it by like, "Oh, it's so devastating." I'm like,
No, right, and let's have some perspective of what
yeah,
this movie actually is, right.
yeah, Friday the 13th, the final chapter is before, because the one after that is, like, Tommy's killing everybody as Jason.
Yes,
But,
absolutely.
like, that's the final chapter is the bridge before it gets super supernatural.
Yes, absolutely. There's
Yeah.
definitely 3 and 4 have a nice little feel together almost, if anything, and 4 does, and then, yeah, 5, 6, 7 I love and is just bug shit crazy,
Wait,
and
is that Takes Manhattan
no,
or
8
okay,
is
8
Takes
Take yes.
Manhattan. 7 is with Tina with the psychic powers,
Oh, yes, yes, yes,
and
yes.
it's just an absolute delight of a film.
It's completely lost the thread at that point where it's like, okay, Jason can just come back from the dead. This
Yeah,
person can control things with their mind and talk to
yeah.
people.
Who cares? Just get into it. They're down to a formula, show titties and show blood every X amount of minutes and just yeah, we got it. And though I mean they absolutely have element of I mean horror in general. I know we're talking 80s camp,
Yeah.
but even actual horror, there's a very strong connection between that and comedy. I mean, even looking at Jordan Peele, who goes from comedy, sketch comedy, acting,
Yes.
comedic acting to very serious, die-hard true to form horror. Danny McBride as well, just a
Mhm.
goofball, goes on to write Halloween, and co-write Halloween movies now. And there's just something there. And I've heard other filmmakers talk about it that besides those two, that just there is something there of like, building up some tension, setting some kind of expectation, breaking it, whether it's like with a laugh or with a scare or something like that. And there's absolutely seems to be some kind of connection in there.
Yeah.
And, I love them both. I love comedy and I love horror. And the pieces that I get to mix the two are actually some of my favorite kinds. I actually have a goofy, scary piece right here that I covered what it was, but I'm getting ready to put it in the store today. But it's a spooky and funny thing. And those are the ones, like I said, I kind of get most excited about. So,
I want to make a request.
yeah.
Um, One of my favorite 80s like schlock horror movies is Slumber Party Massacre 2.
Oh yeah, when he gets the guitar drill. Hell yeah.
The driller killer like is just a rockabilly guy with a guitar that has a drill on the end. There are 4 musical acts in that movie where 3 of them are like the all-girl band playing, which is all music from the band Weekend Wednesday. That's how deep I am into this
Oh, I
movie.
didn't know that. Very good.
And then the killer has his own song in the movie, like, "Let's Buzz" it's called, where
Oh, okay.
he's dancing, like, in the living room of the house where this band is staying at, having their band practice with the guys who are swimming in the pool all the time. He goes upstairs and, kills the woman through a wall with the drill. But it is such a weird, disconnected comedy movie because it has almost nothing to do with the first movie. And the
No,
killer is such a there's no way to explain how bizarre the rockabilly driller killer is from that movie because I don't think there's anything like that in
yeah.
horror, where the first movie's serious, like a serious driller killer, and then the second movie, and I believe they're directed by the same woman, if I remember correctly.
Oh, okay. Um,
It just goes off in such a bonkers way.
yeah, it really does. That time period too, that because Slumber Party Massacre 1 is like 80, 1980, 81, 82. It's somewhere in
Mhm.
those really early 80s days. And it's funny that franchises that began, even though they weren't inadvertently beginning a franchise, not
Yeah.
knowing, but the franchises that began right at the end of the 70s or the beginning of the 80s tend to have that where you get a spooky at the beginning because it was during the late 70s, beginning 80s when we were kind of early 80s when we were making kind of horror movies. Texas Chainsaw is a good one that fits that example. And then suddenly the
Yeah.
second one, and even though Toby Hooper says that Texas Chainsaw 1 is a black comedy, it's a real bold claim.
It
So
certainly
the
is.
vibe between that one and the second one is about as stark as the vibe between Slumber Party Massacre 1 and 2. It
Mhm.
really kind of just takes, and then, so my point being that once these movies that began the franchise in the late 70s, early 80s, when they get a second installment that's in the mid 80s, that was when we were like, yeah, kill with the drill. And when like things were really kind of jumping the shark with horror slasher stuff. So yeah, it makes for these very strange. We had a very nice, well done horror movie. Now we'll make the second one absolutely. Hills Have Eyes is another good example of that.
Yeah.
Hills Have Eyes 2 is just, what are we even doing? Prom Night is another one, 1980 or 81. It's an actual legit slasher. And
And
then,
Jamie Lee Curtis
right, it's,
coming off of Halloween.
yeah, you got Leslie Nielsen in there, not
Oh,
falling
yeah.
down a single set of stairs or doing anything goofball. He's just straight in it. And then Hello, Mary Lou, Prom Night 2, Hello, Mary Lou, made in the mid 80s, and yeah, adopts that kind of sort of 80s vibe. And it's fascinating. And I love both.
Yeah.
Early 80s slashers are my favorite. My wife has heard me talk ad nauseum about it, but I love slashers that came out 80, 81,
Mhm.
82. I just think that cusp of right at the beginning of the 80s, before we've gotten into the sort of Slumber Party Massacre 2 style with the bright neon colors and the punk rock. But we're no longer in the 70s with the flare, the
Mhm.
big, bold, bright colors and the disco stuff. It's like a little soft spot right in the middle, like ET, where everything's just brown and people are wearing kind of very drab, subdued colors. You still have kind of the big collars on like the guys' shirts, some bell bottoms, but not the big bright kind. And it's just a vibe that I fucking love.
Mhm.
And you give me any horror movie from 80, 81, 82, it's just left and right. I would wear that guy's shorts. That's a shirt I want. Those shoes are amazing. That is the vibe I want for my living room. I want that couch. It's just a
Mhm.
vibe. I mean, I was born in 1980, so that also might have something to do with it. But oh God, I cannot get enough of them.
It's this weird transition of slasher into slasher comedy where that was kind of the keystone before 80s horror movies became self-aware that they're kind of a joke, and you get movies like Chopping Mall or Ghoulies or Munchies or Terror Vision
Oh,
where
sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Totally.
like,
They're aware
people
of
are
it.
dying, but, like, no one like, I'm not scared or anything. Like, Child's Play 2 or 3 was the same way, where
Yes.
Chucky's, like, in a military base, and it's
Dude,
like, "What is
with the kids,
happening?"
yes, it is apt. I mean, there's a grenade that goes off at some point in that movie, and it's like, how do we have a grenade in compared to the first Child's Play? That the original Child's Play poster doesn't even have Chucky on it. I mean,
Mhm.
it's very like we're making a horror movie. And then, yeah, cut to here's a grenade flying, and it's like we really took a sharp left turn here. And it's like you said, when they became aware of themselves, a precedent gets set. Those mid 80s, Friday the 13th, the studio literally had a format of here's how
Mhm.
many kills we need, here's how often it needs to show up. Yeah, I mean, obviously, once that kind of stuff starts happening, the absolute vibe or the sort of trajectory of those movies in that genre are going to change totally. I feel like once people are aware of it, because now you're kind of making a statement about it or making a statement within it, as
Mhm.
opposed to just, I don't know, those late 70s, early 80s. It's just kind of like we're feeling it out. We have a handful of early examples to go from, Black Christmas and Texas Chainsaw and, some of the early Italian stuff and some of, plenty of other examples, but not like if you get to 1989, where it's like, look back on the last decade, how many slashers do we have? 1.5 million. So once they really started getting cranked out, once we really started figuring out the format and the sort of, the way they played out, they changed. But I like them that way too. I love a good campy late 80s. I even love a good 90s. I like any slasher, any era. I will watch a
Mhm.
2023 Tubi piece of garbage, or I will watch a 70s well respected legendary,
Just
film.
watch Lucio Fulci
Yeah,
just blood everywhere.
I'll do that, right, and then go on to, like I said, just Hank's found footage Bigfoot film. And it's like, I'll watch that. That's great. This has a budget of $1 and it's 80 minutes. And yeah, I get after any of that stuff.
Did you like Blair Witch Project? Well, here's a movie kind of like that, but other ghosts?
Yeah. So my Blair Witch, that franchise actually, I feel like embodies this perfectly. First
Mhm.
Blair Witch, love. Saw it in
Yes.
the 90s when it came out, and they saw it at Piper's Alley in the city. Knew it was fake, but was still just like, this is a really cool idea.
I
Really.
didn't know it was fake.
Oh, right on. I remember
So,
reading
like,
about it and was so stoked and was like, I got to
yeah,
go see this movie. Effective. I mean, obviously the movie made a huge impact, and it was, the second Blair Witch, Book of
Book of
Shadows,
Shadows.
could not be any different. I mean, talk about taking a shot. I mean, it is, if Blair Witch, we're going to compare them to foods. If Blair Witch 1 is just like a nicely cooked steak on a plate, Blair Witch 2 would just be if someone came then and shot you in the face when you were about to eat the steak, because it is just, I don't know what is going on. They try to do the found footagey stuff. It goes in and out. It is just an absolute, but I'll tell you, I own it and I watch it because it is just a mess on a level that is entertaining to watch.
Yeah, exactly.
But then the next one, Blair Witch, they get into the newer one that came out that Adam Wingard did.
Yes.
I love that one, and I think that one feels a bit like the original. Has moved into a little bit of a new direction, tries some new stuff, really brings it at the end of Act 3 when it's just, I mean, it gets so intense at the end, and
Mhm.
isn't cornball, and doesn't expect, I don't know, I like that one, but that's a good example of a franchise that like really spans the sort of, in only 3 films you get like a really good kind of raw feeling one. You get a whatever the fuck this franchise
Like,
installment is for a
it was
sequel.
like a 90s teen slasher, like, was the second one.
Yeah, totally. It feels so shiny and overproduced, and
Mhm.
it's just, boy, it feels like a made for TV, or like it has like the look of like a sci-fi TV because it's 2000s, I think, somewhere in there, and
Yeah.
it's just, yeah. And then the third one, which I like, and is just like has some modern sensibilities, and is just a fun watch. And I like Adam Wingard too, so
Yeah.
but yeah, give me doo-doo, give me good stuff, give me old, give me new. I kind of just will watch anything, man.
I wanna go back to a point I made of saying I thought Blair Witch was real.
Oh,
I
right.
want to I want to point out, I saw the movie Suburbs of Ottawa. I was out there for a few weeks, like, visiting family. This was a Matt Elfring that was unsure if ghosts and afterlife existed
Sure. It's
before I went
90.
like yeah, before I went like, I don't care, whatever. None of this matters. We're just gonna be dead.
Sure, man. Before we gave up and before life broke us, dude, stakes were higher back then. They felt
Is there an afterlife? Probably not, but who knows? So
high. I know.
whatever. I'm
Uh-huh.
not gonna worry about
Yeah,
it.
dude. I don't know. I got a vape pen to hit here. I got bigger problems to deal with. So, I got to unclog this thing.
But also they were doing such a hardcore press tour right before the movie came out where they're just like, "No, this is all real. That
Dude,
we found this
absolutely, man.
footage."
I mean,
It was genius. Like, the way they marketed that was so good.
pre heavy internet, if at
Yeah.
all, and just was really done well, man. And it was a cannibal holocaust situation too, where not that he was there was authorities involved, but it was one of those things where after the movie came out, seeing them on, because they did the talk show
They
rounds,
were on Jay Leno.
yeah, and seeing that then, and it's
So
like,
weird.
oh, anyone who thought that that was real would then be like, oh, she's fine. Heather's right there. And it's also like, yeah, Heather was also in a Steak and Shake commercial. Like, this is an actress. These are actors. This is what we do. But I mean, that was at the time, it was, the way he put them through kind of, you're not going to know what's exactly going on in today's shoot, the way they
Yeah,
were,
it was they were put through hell to shoot
right,
that.
and just given prompts and no real working script. So it's with real dialogue. So there's a reason I feel like it made such an impact. And then I
Yeah.
think there's a reason why number 2 made such an impact on me, because it's aptly called, it's number 2, and it feels very much like stepping in number 2 and just whatever the hell that movie is. But I like them both, dude. And it kind of comes
Yeah.
through on the stuff I make. Like I said, I like taking the time to um, sculpt something, doing it in parts to really make it good, taking the time to paint, like we were saying, do multiple thin layers, keep all that detail. Just sculpted something that was Bigfoot related that I had a lot of fun doing, and I can't reveal it yet. But it was a really fun thing. But then on the other hand, I also like just taking something like this and like, oh, it's a Bigfoot dick. That's great. Put that in the package too. So like I like both, like a cornball stupid thing, but also something that took some time and care. And yeah, I like consuming art that hits both of those. I like making art that hits both of those. I just kind of you can't appreciate good stuff, in my opinion, without also appreciating a little bit of the doo-doo that's put out there. I probably
Completely agree.
consume too much, but it's fun for me.
Yeah. This is the part of the show where I say, "Hey Dan, plug all the things."
Oh, Death by Toys.
I just looked at the time. I'm like, "Oh, we've just been having a fun conversation about horror." And
Oh yeah, we're
also,
over now. Awesome. Yeah, dude.
yeah,
I didn't even notice. Yeah, no, deathbytoys.com is the site. Anything that's a social media thing or an internet, just type in Death by Toys and it'll be me. So easy to find. And go purchase something and keep me out of corporate America for another day.
come look at the new Le Creuset pots.
Yeah. Don't make me go back, please. Don't do this to me. I need this. It broke me. I can't go back. I'm like a child who escaped the coal mines in like the 20s. And it's like, I can't go back in there. Gave me the black lung. I'm like crippled. Like, I'm not going back. So thank you, buddy. This is all I got. So
It needs this.
we'll take this from me. I appreciate this. I appreciate dropping me a line and letting me chat with you, Matt. This was
Yeah,
really fun.
of course. And this is where I have my own banner. I didn't give you a banner other than Dan needs this.
Yeah, that's all that people need to know, dude. Anything else is just secondary info.
Uh,
Nice. I'm going to subscribe to your Patreon.
oh, thank you. Patreon.com/. I'm Matt Elfring, Matt with one T because I'm an asshole. Uh, Breakfast lasagna is exclusive. Video is exclusive, and then I'm just going to launch it a couple weeks after. Sometimes I write on there. I don't know, whenever I have free time. The podcast comes out whenever I do it. I don't know. Who cares?
It's my kind of schedule. I like that.
Yeah, I'm not gonna sit here and try to like hustle like the younger kids, like gotta have content out this week, gotta have it. This is fun. This is all I give a shit about is like just chatting. And yeah, you'll get content out of it, but this is really more for me.
Well, I appreciate it, man. It was fun for me too. So I'm glad you do it, and glad that you, I don't know, hustle enough to keep this stuff going. So it's
Yeah,
great,
what
man.
I mean, yeah.
I'm gonna check
It's
out some. Do you post pictures of any of your dice or any of your minis that you paint?
I used to be so good at that on Instagram,
Uh,
and then I'm like, I'm tired of posting it. I wanna
Dude, it's hard, man. I only do it because I'm
yeah.
about to get stuff sold. But
Yeah,
yeah,
that's
yeah, yeah.
that's the thing is you're doing stuff for work and me, it's just personal, and I'm like, I
Dude, it's
sometimes I'm just like, I wanna keep my hobbies and stuff to me. Like,
yeah,
if I'm trying to sell something or promote something, that's different, but I'm like,
absolutely.
I feel too old for social media.
Yeah, I kind of sometimes feel that way too. I know what you mean, but we're
It's
not. But even if you feel that way, but I know
yeah,
what you mean. But
and no offense to you because you're selling things on social media and doing
dude,
your which is
absolutely no.
great.
Yeah, no, but I know what you mean. And all right, well, I'm gonna dig through some of your feed and try to find some of the stuff that you make. So I'd like to see those. So I'm glad that
There's
even
stuff
if
on
they're
there.
not there, that you're doing them behind the scenes at least. So good
Like,
on
I
you.
think the last thing I did was like, "Hey, the solar eclipse, I love the like
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Sure, I know how it goes. Again,
I
if it
believe
was
I wrote Welcome to the Dark Universe as an homage to the Dark Universe from Universal.
that's good enough for me. I like that. So, well,
Yeah,
thank
and
you.
that's just where we're gonna end it. Bye, Dan.
Awesome. Goodbye, Matt. Thank you for having me, dude.